Welcome back. We're going to talk about defence. It seems to be the big issue for the last couple of days. Now, on Sunday, a couple of days ago, Tim, I'm still with Tim Montgomery, of course, the papers were full of, cabinet ministers writing these strident, tough-talking articles of John Healey. It's time to make the tough decisions. The defence of the nation is primary, and we have to... Anyway, it turns out that what they've actually committed to is not very much at all. I think they're spending about 2.3% of GDP on defence at the moment, but they're kind of committing to potentially working towards 2.5% by 2027, which is not exactly hold the front page. And then Defence Secretary John Healey goes on to Laura Kuenssberg on the BBC on Sunday. She presses him and so and that's right. He says we've got to. Our ambition, of course, is 3%. To go in line with NATO's increasing commitment to defence, etc. So we need to get to 3%. So the government basically pledged 2.5% followed by 3%. This was their pledge. Then to Laura Kuenssberg, John Healey admitted that the 3% was merely an ambition. And you know what that means in Westminster. It means it hasn't got a snowball's chance in hell of happening. So that's not going to happen. The former NATO Secretary-General, Lord Robertson, he has come up with a strategic defence review that has concluded that Britain's armed forces, and that includes an army of just 73,000 soldiers, aren't ready...
And falling.
Yeah, are not ready to fight a war. So Healey and Starmer are droning on in their strategic defence spending review, and the strategic nature of that spending is there isn't going to be much of it. They're talking about 12 more nuclear subs, arming fighter jets with nuclear missiles, and so on and so forth. So that, in that respect, while I worry about that, I mean, I'm not against the idea of more nuclear subs and arming our planes in these difficult times with nuclear missiles. We've got that's called defending the nation. How are we going to pay for that? It's going to be more tax rises. So we've got tax rises to pay for these nuclear subs and nuclear missiles on planes. Apart from that, there's not really very much in this at all, is there? No. This is just, they're gaslighting us again, aren't they? 3%, is that a definite commitment? No, it's just a sort of idea.
Well, look, I'm going to give some advice to Keir Starmer now, live on your programme. I'm sure he's
second word's off?
I'm sure Keir Starmer's a regular viewer of yours. I can't imagine he misses a word.
He loves this show. him and Lindsay Hoyle, they gather on the sofa every night to watch.
With a cup of cocoa or something. Well, no, it'll be a sort of Caribbean drink.
Sulfuric acid.
Lindsay Hoyle would have a Caribbean drink.
Oh, of course, yes.
In front of him,
just recently brought back. Yeah. Go on.
So, my advice to Keir Starmer, and I'm sure he will listen very attentively, is for goodness sake, choose what your government is about.
Yes.
Every week, Kevin, you know, and listeners will know, is he makes another big announcement. Every week there's a big announcement. 1 week it's on immigration, 1 week it's on welfare, 1 week it's on defence. If you have 101 priorities as a government, you have no priorities at all. Yeah. He moves from one policy to... Rishi Sunak, I'm afraid, was the same.
Jack of all trades, master of none.
Constantly announcing things, but never governing and never seeing things through. Right. Now, for me, defence would be a priority. I would choose 2 or 3 priorities. Stopping the boats would be another one, which of course is incredibly linked to our national security. Choose 2 or 3 priorities. Make promoting growth a priority, but don't have promoting growth as your priority and then have more workplace rights and rent reform and 101 other things your priority. The trouble with this government is defence absolutely should be a national priority at the moment. But you can't have it as a priority if you're spending on loads of other things as well. And the reason why people don't believe Keir Starmer is because they know more than he does that the government isn't focused on this. And in a few days' time, they'll be talking about something else. Maybe they'll come back to defence in a few weeks, but they haven't decided fundamentally what this government's purpose is. And until they do that, people will switch off from what they announced, because what they announced doesn't bear any relationship doesn't bear enough relationship to what they do.
Their defence initiative doesn't really amount to much at all, does it?
No. No.
So it is literally it's a declaration. They're sensing that the people of this country, the people of the world, in fact, are getting more and more worried about their own safety. You know, we live in turbulent times. The spectre of war isn't far away, let's face it. So they've discerned that the people of this country are a bit worried. They want proper defence, and they fear, with an army of 73,000, which wouldn't even fill some football grounds, that we are not properly defended. So they've obviously worked out, we need to make some statements about defence. And that's all we've had. Just these tough talking, right, John, you write for the Mail on Sunday, you do the Sunday Telegraph, and we'll all announce, yes, sir, the Labour is going to make this country safe. But all of this doesn't amount to a hill of beans.
It doesn't, because until they commit to really spending serious money, it doesn't amount to anything. And I tell you what, the British people, if they're not frightened, they should be frightened. I'm frightened. What was more significant for me than the defence review this weekend was that extraordinary attack by Ukraine with those drones that wiped out a third of Russia's strategic bombing command. What would happen to this? I don't want to be too dramatic, Kevin, but what would happen if an adversary of Britain sent drones over our skies? Would we be able to knock those drones out? Would those drones be able to take out our strategic assets? Would they be able to bomb key national institutions? My fear is that we aren't ready for those attacks. So it's absolutely vital we do gear up for potentially attacks of the kind we haven't seen before. But are we going to trust a government that doesn't put money into this? Of course we're not. No, it's incredible. Yeah, literally incredible.
I mean, it's difficult for them, but I just think, you know, I know that honesty is always in short supply at the Palace of Westminster, but I think if Keir Starmer stood up and in a straight, decent way said to us, listen, these are very dangerous times. The defence of this realm is the most important thing that we have to deal with, and I'm afraid it's going to cost some money. Simple as that. I think the people would rally behind that, because I do think the people of this country are looking for defence. They're looking to feel safer than they do right now. But instead, it's all this kind of, 3%. Is it really 3%? Well, you know, not really. 2.5% by 2027, and so on and so forth. And then vague story. More subs. You know, big missiles on planes. It's
all
not
too
good
far
enough.
away. Putin's not sat in the Kremlin and said, I was going to attack Britain, but I'm now going to wait till 2031 because they're not going to be ready to play until then.
You know? I want it to be a fair fight.
So it doesn't happen. We need to be doing stuff yesterday, not, you know, in a few years' time.
But bear that in mind, that the 2.5% that we're working towards, that isn't until 2027.
No.
And then we're talking about John Healey's alleged ambition for 3%. So this is all very nebulous and vague, isn't it?
And to be fair to Keir Starmer, he did something I never thought a Labour government would do. He cut the aid budget from 0.5% of GDP to 0.3%, which is something the Labour Party supposedly cares a lot about. They cut that, but that was a first step towards doing this properly. The trouble is we haven't seen the second, the third, the fourth and the fifth steps to taking this seriously. And at the moment, Britain is not well defended. And I'm sorry if that sounds frightening or worrying to some of our listeners, but it's much better to face up to our fears and start to do something about them than pretend that we're not vulnerable in the first place.
Well, yes, exactly what Lord Robertson said, former head of Nato, British Labour politician, of course. He just said, we are not ready for war. It's as simple as that. 73,000 soldiers in the army. He said, we've just about got a peacetime force. That's it. Tim Montgomery, fantastic to see you as always.